The Patriots shocked the NFL world on Wednesday morning when they released all-pro cornerback Stephon Gilmore. Hi again, everyone. I'm James Rapien with allbengals.com and Cincinnati Bengals Talk, reporting from Rapien Manor as the Bengals, well, they're one of many, many teams that are at least going to have a discussion about Stephon Gilmore. And a lot of you have reached out on Twitter or Instagram, DMing me, asking about potential interest in Stephon Gilmore, and if the Bengals could reach out to the two-time All-Pro, four-time Pro Bowler. Well, let's start with the positive and then get to the real. The positives of adding a guy like Gilmore, well, I just said part of it. You know, you're talking about a two-time All-Pro, four-time Pro Bowler, elite cover corner. And yeah, he's 31 years old and he's coming off of a serious injury, and we'll get to more on that. But if he's close to what he was in 2019 when he was the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year, well, there you go. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck. That being said, there's a few reasons why I think it's unrealistic. At the same time, I understand why you think about the idea of, well, Jessie Bates and Von Bell at safety. And can you imagine Chidobe Awuzie, Trey Waynes potentially still in the mix, Mike Hilton, and then Stephon Gilmore leading the way in that secondary? I mean, it's a hell of a secondary. And suddenly that becomes not just a good position group or a good area of this defense, but maybe the strongest area of the team. Unfortunately, I think it is unrealistic, even though the Bengals do have $17 million in cap space. They certainly have the availability in the money to get a one-year deal done. If that's what Gilmore is looking for, maybe they look at it and they say, look, Gilmore can be our Trey Waynes replacement in 2022. And if they do release Waynes after this season, it's a $5 million cap hit. So it's not huge. If they released him now, by the way, $12 million cap hit. So you're basically better off just keeping him around than moving on from him. Trading him, still $10 million according to Over the Cap. So there's really no benefit to moving off of Waynes, and it's not like you can swap him out and take that money and just give it to Gilmore. Because if so, I think a lot of teams would certainly be willing to do that. The negative of this is, one, yeah, money. I mean, it's an unknown commodity with Stephon Gilmore right now. He's coming off of a bad quad injury, something that he suffered last year, and he's still on the PUP list because of it. Apparently, he is fully healthy, according to multiple reports, is ready to go, and can be eligible and will be eligible to be activated after week 6. The other thing here is, if you're Stephon Gilmore, don't you want to join not an up-and-coming team, but a legitimate contender? So you want your money, but you want to join a legitimate contender. And while the Bengals are off to a 3-1 start, and yeah, I think that there's plenty of pull that a guy like Joe Burrow has, if Cincinnati's going to land Gilmore, I think they have to come in with the best offer, right? Because if they're line in line and neck with, let's say, Tampa Bay, Kansas City at, I don't know, $10 million, right, for the rest of the year, let's just say, well, wouldn't you pick Kansas City? Wouldn't you pick Tampa Bay? Wouldn't you pick Green Bay? And I don't think Green Bay will necessarily get in the mix. Baltimore, Cleveland. I mean, there are a lot of options for him, and those are just some. I think Dallas could get in the mix. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are going to be interested in Stephon Gilmore, and they should be, right? You know, maybe the San Francisco 49ers as well take a look at him. Arizona, another team. That being said, so that's one thing about it, is you're going to have to really blow his doors off offer-wise, in my opinion. But the other part of this that makes it tough is what the Bengals are building. And they're building this culture, they're building this infrastructure, and something they haven't gotten done yet is a Jessie Bates extension. Imagine what it would look like if the Bengals said, yeah, we couldn't get Jessie done, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to give Stephon Gilmore $12 million this year, even though he's 31 years old, even though he's coming off of a quad injury, even though he's been on the PUP list and hasn't played it down. And yeah, he was still good last year, but not as good as he was 2 years ago in 2019. Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to bring in an outsider. When you do something like that, it sends a vibe. It sends a message to the rest of the locker room. And, you know, especially these guys that you've drafted and you've developed. And that's why I just think it would be really uncharacteristic by the Bengals to do so. So those are a couple of the reasons, the optics in the locker room. Not that the Bengals, again, not that they wouldn't be interested, and not that they're not interested in Stephon Gilmore. I think they would love the player. But it's not like you can free up Trey Waynes' money. You still haven't paid Jessie Bates yet. And I'm not crying poor for the Bengals because they have plenty of cap space going into 2022. And, if you go the multi-year route with Gilmore, then yeah, you could certainly go that route and push some of that money to the 2022 season when maybe a Trey Waynes is off the books. And if that's the case, by the way, that would shore up what is going to probably be a huge need going into the draft, going into the offseason next year. It's also a lot of money for one position group. You're right. You're paying Waynes a lot of money. You're paying Awuzie a lot of money, Hilton, and then you add Gilmore into the mix. So football-wise, I get it. I understand it. I just think it is unrealistic. That being said, if they do it, which, again, the Bengals, they've surprised me before. I certainly think they're going to at least have a discussion at Paul Brown Stadium. If they bring in a guy like Gilmore, it's certainly going to bolster their defense. And I've seen a couple people say, well, I don't want to disrupt, and I don't want the Bengals to disrupt the chemistry they have because they're a real tight-knit group. And I get that. You don't think Gilmore, though, is the exact guy that would fit? Because I think he would. I don't think you're getting a me first guy. I think you're getting a we first guy. And the reason he was released is because the Patriots said, hey, Stephon Gilmore, take a pay cut. And he said, okay, I'll be willing to take a pay cut because they only had like $50,000 in cap space. I'll be able to free up some money for you, but I want something in return, whether it's another year on his contract, an extension, something like that, right? And more guaranteed money, something. And that didn't happen. And so if you're Gilmore, it stinks, but that's the reality of life in the NFL, certainly when you're playing for the New England Patriots, who saved $5.8 million by releasing him. So I don't see Gilmore making it on onto the Bengals. I think when you talk to people around the league, Kansas City comes to mind right away. Certainly would make sense with Honey Badger and that Chiefs defense with Tyrann Mathieu in the mix. That'd be a hell of a 1-2 combo in the secondary. Or, a team like Tampa Bay, you can never rule them out, and you never know what could happen with restructures and different things and shuffling money around. And again, I get it for those who are like, well, how about the Bengals do that and make sure they can get a guy like this? If they do it, I think it would be a great move. I do think it's unrealistic because they still want to pay Bates, and they just don't do that, especially when that really isn't a glaring need. If Awuzie is back this week, they look at it and they say, well, Eli Apple's playing pretty well. We're pretty much 4 deep at corner, 5 if you count Darius Phillips, who's certainly shown he's capable of making big plays over the years. So just my 2 cents. Let me know what you think and where you think Stephon Gilmore is going to end up. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll have all the latest Bengals injury news and so much more later today right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk.